All right, guys, so we are on page 22 of your Ready book for this lesson. And in this lesson, we're going to talk about reflections. So we just did translations. For this one, we are doing reflections, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the page. So on the bottom of the page, they reflected over the x-axis. So this is a x-axis reflection. Notice that when you reflect over the x-axis, y and y prime, its image, are the same distance from the x-axis. So y is 1 unit above, y prime is 1 unit below. Same with z. Z is 3 units above, z prime is 3 units below. Same with w and x. Both of them are 4 units above the x-axis. When you reflect it, they're both 4 units below. So that's how you perform a reflection. Let's actually try the reflection over the y-axis. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to look at our table of values. So if I wanted to go over the y-axis, y right now is 2 units away from the y-axis, so I need to go 2 units in this direction. And so let's call that y double prime. So when I say y double prime, that means the second transformation. Because I already did one reflection. So this is my second transformation of the original shape. Now x is 1 unit from the y-axis, so we need to go 1 unit in the other direction to give us x double prime. W is 1, 2, 3 units from the y-axis, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 units from the y-axis in the other direction. And z is 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'm going to go in the other direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, to give me z double prime. So I'm going to connect my dots to make my shape. Notice that all 3 shapes are congruent, because anytime you do a reflection, you get a congruent image. Okay, so let's fill out this table. So for the purple, nope, that's not purple, the pink shape, w prime was -3, -4, x prime was -1, -4, y prime was -2, -1, z prime was -4, -3. So this was the one where I went over the x-axis. This was my x-axis reflection. Let's do the same thing we did in the other video. Let's compare the x coordinates of the pre-image to the image. And if we notice, the x coordinates stayed the same. The y coordinates, however, went from +4 to -4, +4 to -4, +1 to -1, 3 to -3. So for a reflection over the x-axis, the x coordinate is going to stay the same. It's the y coordinate that changes. And what we're going to say is the y coordinate is opposite. So since they were all positive, they became negative. If it was the other way around, if they were all negative, they would become positive. So the y coordinate just changes its sign. Now let's list the coordinates of the y-axis reflection that we did on our own just now. So that was having w double prime, x double prime, y double prime, z double prime, because it was our second transformation. So let's extend this out, and let's compare the coordinates. So for w double prime, the coordinate was +3, +4. It was, for x, 1, positive 4. So x double prime was 1, positive 4. Y double prime was 2, 1. Z double prime was 4, 3. Now we want to compare this to the original, the pre-image. So the x coordinate was negative 3, then it became positive 3. The y coordinate was 4, it stayed 4. The x coordinate was negative 1, it became positive 1. The y coordinate was 4, it stayed 4. Negative 2 became positive 2, 1 stayed 1. Negative 4, positive 4, 3 stayed 3. So when you go over the y-axis, this time x becomes opposite. And y stayed the same. So the way I remember that is if it's an x-axis reflection, x is what's staying the same. If it's a y-axis reflection, y is who stays the same. So let's look at the next page, page 23. So I'm skipping 1 and 2 because that's what we just did on page 22. And I'm just going to look at page question 3. And we are going to see the same thing that we just said. This is our pre-image. 2, 3, negative 1, 4, negative 5, negative 1, 3, negative 6. This first one went over the x-axis. So it stayed 2, negative 3. It stayed negative 1, but became the opposite of 4, which is negative 4. It stayed negative 5, but became positive 1. It stayed 3, and it became negative 6. Let's add, I'm going to do it in black. Let's add one more coordinate to do on our own. Let's have the coordinate be 4, comma, negative 8. So if I'm doing a reflection over the x-axis, x stays the same, y becomes opposite, so the opposite of negative 8 is positive 8. So that would be the image. If we look at the y-axis reflections, 2 became negative, 3 stayed the same. Negative 1 became positive, 4 stayed the same because it's a y-axis reflection, so y is staying the same. Negative 5 became positive 5, negative 1 stayed the same. 3 became negative 3, negative 6 stayed the same. So if we're using 4, comma, negative 8, this time y stays the same, x becomes opposite, so the new coordinate is negative 4, negative 8. So in general, when we do an x-axis reflection, if we have the coordinate x, comma, y, it's going to become positive x, but negative y. X stays the same, y changes to opposite. If it's a y-axis reflection, and we start with x, comma, y stays the same, but x becomes opposite. Only one coordinate is changing because we're only doing one reflection. If we did a double reflection, x and y at the same time, then it would be opposite of x and opposite of y.